Welcome to the World Awaits.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust. Hi there, I'm your host of The World Awaits, Phil Jackson, and welcome back to our summer series. A very, very Merry Christmas to anyone who has decided to have a little taste of the tropics this year on Christmas Day. And for those listening on playback, Merry Christmas or maybe even a Happy New Year to you. This week, as I said, we are all about the tropics, so we're taking you to Tahiti and then, for a complete change of scene, into the wilds of Papua New Guinea with Australian musician David Bridie. Kicking off this episode is my co-host Kirsty Bedford, who's talking about her recent trip to Tahiti, where she attended the country's first annual yoga festival, a chance to find her zen and connect with culture in this tropical paradise. You'll also hear founder of the festival, Rani Shaves, talk about what makes Tahiti such a unique destination for a yoga festival, and leading yoga teacher and instructor Ilka Heckel about how and what you need to do on the mat to transform your entire mindset.
This week we're talking Tahiti. So just a matter of weeks ago, I was in Tahiti for the first international yoga festival being held on this stunning tropical paradise. The festival was organised by Rani Shaves. Now, she was in the corporate world and threw it all in for a more meaningful life. So she's originally from Tahiti and she splits her time between Tahiti and the US. And she was going to hold the festival in Tahiti a few years ago, and then the pandemic hit. So it's taken her about 5 years to get it off the ground.
That is absolute dedication. And I love stories like these. So let's start with telling us how you get from get to Tahiti from Australia.
Yeah, she's got a great story. I mean, she was very senior in the corporate world and both in the travel industry before she decided to just give it all up for wellness. So I started my journey in Melbourne on Qantas, which has a code-share partnership with Air Tahiti Nui, and you fly via Auckland to Papaisi on Air Tahiti Nui. And I flew on the new Mavana premium class, which was created because the airline wanted to sort of enhance that offering. So it already had a premium class, but it's actually enhanced it and renamed it. And this new premium class means that you get fast security check-in lane. Oh my God, who doesn't want that? And priority boarding. And you can shock up large too, because you get two 23-kilo bags, but not that you'll have time because you'd be doing all the other amazing stuff there is on the island. You also get champagne, and there's multiple meal options and cute little amenities like bamboo socks and a bamboo eye mask and a toothbrush and earplugs. I always forget to take a toothbrush in my carry-on, and I think it's such a great thing to have when you're, particularly if you're doing like this route from Australia where you're going via Auckland, because, you know, you can just stop and when you hop off to do the transfer, you just, you know, you can freshen up a little bit. And there are only 35 seats, super comfortable seats, I might also add. And I did write a review about it if you want to read a bit more on that, which we'll put a link in the show notes on Carry On.
So tell us about this world first festival for Tahiti. So whereabouts exactly was it, and how many days did it go for?
So the festival ran over 3 days, and it's held at the Tahiti by Pearl Resorts, which is actually on a black sand beach on the east coast. So the west coast has the white sand beaches and the east coast has black sand beaches. Such a stunning location. I mean, you know, just picture sort of this beautiful 5-star resort with a gorgeous garden and ocean backdrop and swaying palms and beautiful black sand beach. So it was just, it was a great location for a festival like that.
It just doesn't, the black sand thing always weirds me out a bit, but let's get into the yoga. So what sort of sessions did you do? I mean, I do love a bit of yoga, and I know you do as well. So let's tell us about the sessions in the festival.
Yeah, love yoga. So there were lots of yoga sessions, but it wasn't just about yoga. There were actually, it was, you know, really diverse in the offering. So each day they have, and you can do this again, obviously this is an annual festival, which is why we're talking about it, because you can do it next year. It's going to be in November 2026. So there are 2 sessions running at each time slot. So you can choose what ones you want to do. So for instance, one session might be on one day, might be at, let's say, 11 o'clock or something, might be activating your inner warrior. So you're thrusting your arms about, making whatever noise you feel you need to, because it's all about having no inhibitions. So freeing yourself. And like Rani says, it's about peeling back the layers. So it's about not being, you know, just letting go and letting go and letting go physically and mentally, because then you're just letting go of anything that's worrying you at the time. So, and not being conscious and worried so much about what anyone around you is thinking. And I really got that vibe from the festival. It was so nice. It was just, everyone was very just there for self-love, and to get a sense of their own being and freeing themselves up. And so that really came across really strongly. So there might be a session like that at one stage, and then at the same time in a different room or in the garden, there might be something about sort of, a breathing workshop or a cultural workshop. So I did one cultural workshop that I did was with Tainui Malateste from Tahiti Whenua, he runs cultural workshops through his organisation, and he has had a table of bamboo flutes in front of him in the garden, and they're called vivo, and they're played by the nose. And he said these specific types of flutes are only played by the nose here in French Polynesia, and it's really important to him that this culture stays alive because it's a traditional culture that's otherwise going to be lost. So it was really interesting because he told us that the air that comes out of your nose cannot lie, curse, and blame. And this is why they play the instrument with the nose at sacred ceremonies, because it's the purest air of your body. And oh my gosh, it was tough, like trying to play that flute with the nose. You would have found it quite hilarious watching me. But he just played the most beautiful. Belle's cracking up laughing with her visions of me with a flute on my nose. But he did it so beautifully. And and so for Rani, incorporating culture is just really vitally important into the festival because, she said, obviously, the Tahitian culture is so sacred. And for me, coming from Australia, it added so much value to my experience because it's not only you learning about these traditions that would otherwise be lost, these really important cultural traditions, but it's about back to being mindful. So you're sitting and you're learning and you're taking in these beautiful scenery and this beautiful environment, and you're actually focusing on something, mindful and learning something and a craft, which is so good for your wellness and your well-being. So it's a perfect fit to be at a yoga festival. And while I was there, I actually sat down with Rani and Alka, who is a yoga instructor and a teacher and a life coach. You have to look her up. It's Alka Yoga. She is remarkable. She's based in the States. And we had a really good chat about why yoga is so important for your well-being, why, Rani decided to hold this festival in Tahiti and why it was so important to her to do it there, and some things that you can do and that you can learn and take home from this festival, because Chirani, that's what it's all about. It's about having things to learn that you can also take home. So take a listen. So Rani, tell us a bit about why you wanted to start the Tahiti's very first yoga festival.
I've attended a few yoga festivals the past few years, and there was so much transformation happening with all the different classes and conferences we're attending. And I had organized one Tahiti Yoga Festival in 2020, and everything was ready to go, but then COVID happened, so it never saw the day. And after that, I never really, had the strength to pick it up again and redo everything. So it's been 5 years since the first one, and this time was different. I mean, it felt ready. I had grown as well, and also with everything that is happening in the world, it felt like we needed that space here in Tahiti. We needed to connect people in a different way, through something more, mindful, joyful, and also reconnect people to the culture, to the sacredness of life and to the essence of life. And that was the whole thing behind it. It's just we need a space where we can all come and surrender and just be and just flow and not think.
And were you surprised at, the response to it? Because for me, it was so much more than a festival. For me, it was such a really moving, emotive sort of journey about self and well-being. Did you find that is that sort of the response that you've been getting?
Yeah, and that's what we wanted to create. We wanted to create this sanctuary where you can just come and be and drop all the layers and drop, all the masks and all the responsibilities and really be with yourself and be with others. And so, yeah, the aim was to make something really experiential, not about just yoga, but also about our heritage as Polynesians, because there is a beautiful heritage here in the islands, and the wisdom that we have here from our ancestors really, is connected to all the different ancient civilizations as well, and the way they were doing things and thinking and being in harmony with nature and with one another. So that was the idea as well, was really bringing the collective together, but for everyone to be able to go within and find something, like find their treasure, basically.
Amazing. And do you think that the differentiation factor for Tahiti and one of the differentiation factors of doing yoga here is, one, obviously this beautiful, exceptional, stunning environment that we're in, but also, like you said, the cultural immersion and also learning about these traditions that would otherwise be lost, which is something that I found really valuable when I was here.
Yeah, because we all often think of yoga as just like what we do on a mat or in a studio, but to me, yoga is what you find in just like admiring a sunset or watching the sunrise, or here like seeing the moon rise behind the mountains. And the culture here is so rich, and it's really it has this very sacred aspect and the reverence for life and nature that we have kind of lost a little bit in our in our modern world. And so it was important to integrate all these elements together, because I think like yoga is also teaching us how to go back to our roots, to our origins, and clearing what needs to be cleared as well, so that we are better human beings, so that we bring more light to the world, and so that we also, by healing our wounds, we heal other generations' wounds as well. And so that makes us, better people, more people that are more aware, self-aware, and also more mindful of what is going on in our lives and around us.
Yes. And it was remarkable how many people were here from all over the world. Was that something that you were hoping to achieve?
So yeah, it was the original idea, but of course, it was bringing everyone here, but meeting like, locals, meeting the world as well, through all these different sharing and meetings and encounters. And I think it brings a lot of richness to a space when you have people coming from all different walks of life, but also different countries.
Yeah, amazing. And Alka, you've been one of the really important presenters here, and are very, very experienced. Tell us a bit about your experience in the industry, and also you explained when you were doing your presentation about the meaning of yoga and the significance of it. And I felt that when you did that during that presentation, that was a really powerful point and a valid point about the reason why really that we do yoga in the first place.
Well, yes, thank you for, taking the class and notice that, because I think that's one of kind of my job as a yoga teacher, as a lot of yoga teachers, to actually teach what the knowledge is behind the experience. Being this festival, what Rani has put in together has been very profound to me, because this is the festival that she brought so much, like she said, so much culture into it. Was very intimate, the connection, and I feel very blessed and grateful to be part of this experience. Like you said, there was people from all over the world, and I think that was her intention from the beginning, to bring this union of culture and also share with people not only yoga, but what actually community is about, connection is about, and especially what's happening in the world. We need more of this connection, equanimity. So I feel like being part of this festival, it's really such a profound experience, and hopefully that everyone can do something like this in their lives.
Yeah. Absolutely. And tell us a bit about, you're explaining sort of the real meaning of yoga and what it means. Tell us those 4 things that you were mentioning, because I thought that was such an interesting concept.
Well, I've been in this yoga wellness and teaching for 25 years now. And like I said, one of the things for me is not teaching people the asanas, which are the poses, not teach people about the breath, is what the experience is about. What make yoga such a profound is that you don't need to believe in anything. It doesn't require your mind to actually to understand, to believe, to know what is this about. It requires your experience, so you feel it, right? You come to yoga because it feels good. That's good enough. But you keep coming back for a reason. You keep showing back for a reason, right? Something that's happening. I never met anybody that goes to yoga and said, I wish I had not gone to yoga. You might drag yourself into it because it requires sometimes a motivation. But once you go, you said, oh, I feel so good. But what's happening actually when you understand the knowledge behind the experience, there's more value every time you show up in your mat. And that's what becomes such a profound practice that you want to do it over and over again and applying to your life. So the principles of yoga that I share in my class is that they are these clouds. We call these in Sanskrit avidaya, which are misperceptions, things that we cannot see. But the problem is that how you know when you are in the cloud state? How do you know that you're not in a place of clarity? So your words, your thoughts, and action can come from a place of certainty and not cloudness. So yoga teach us very for basic, but very challenging. And you see like, but that is so simple. But we're going to see yourself every day in those layers that's going to show up in your life and show up in your mat. The first one is the ego. So every time that you have that sense, I am right. Defensive, right? You're like, I know I am right. And you want to be defensive. You also feel in your body. Your body is this incredible instrument that allows you to feel, which is right in your gut, in the solar plexus, right? So you feel here, I want to defend myself. So that's the first layer that tells you already you are in a cloud state. The second one is attachment. We wanted things not because we need it, but maybe because it was pleasurable for us yesterday. We tended to cling to things, to people. So that's the second layer that you can also know that you're in a cloud state. The third one is aversion. Aversion is something that you are closed-minded. You've never been there. You never experienced. You just not even want to try. The fourth one, which kind of goes a little bit with aversion, but that's fear. Fear to take a risk, fear to believe in yourself, or maybe you already been there, you got hurt, and you're going to close yourself again, and you just don't want to do it again. That's it. That's very simple, but those are the 4 principles of yoga. And why it makes such profound when you come into your mat, it's like your canvas. Everything that is happening on your mat, that means the way you breathe, the way you feel, the way you move, the way that you think, the way that you actually experience is the way you are off the mat. So you start applying this knowledge into your life. So you have what? More certainty, more clarity. And that's how you start unfolding those layers that start to help you to be more present. And you are present. The probability for you to make a mistake will be 0 because there is no like trigger sensations anymore in your body. You are relaxed. So you are very clear, which in Sanskrit called vidaya, which is the opposite of it. So therefore, you start to become a little better, not perfect, because that's not the message of life, but better than yesterday. And then years from now, I'm sure you're like, wow, I'm so much better. This situation won't trigger me anymore. And that's when you go and show up to your mat, to our practice in yoga, there is this value that you actually start taking to your life. And imagine if everybody started doing this, what would be the world?
Yeah. Yeah, true. And we put so much pressure today on things like, I have to find my purpose. I have to how can I be of service to the world? But we put a lot of pressure. And instead of just surrendering to what is, sometimes, we just want to, project so much that in the end, we stay stuck in that ego of like, oh, why I. But and it's true, yoga is teaching us how to actually be better connected to everything that is going on without actually being caught into it, and just keeping that space between us and everything that is happening and having the clarity to say like, oh, wait, what you're doing right here is not right. You're into that state of ego or, aversion or of attachment. And it's learning that self-mastery in the end of like, okay, this is happening and I can see it, but I can distance myself from it and come back to a space where it is, there's no attachment or no ego and, or none of these things. And yoga is just amazing with that. It gives so much clarity and it teaches us really how to be self-aware.
Yeah, I love that. And then you think about, so what is really that we start feeling it? Your body. Nobody knows where your mind is. And I mentioned this in class. Your mind is where your attention is. So what do? We teach techniques. Techniques. Constantly, the teachers say, inhale, exhale. Inhale, bring your arms out. Bring your gaze to the middle finger of your right hand. That's your mind goes right there. Take a deep breath in, relax your jaw. These are all techniques to help you to stay present. And how you stay present? With the feeling, sensations in your body. That's why it doesn't require your mind, require your experience. Are you breathing? Are you become aware of the sensations in your body, right? So we also have the senses. The senses is a good communicator for you before you do anything. And that's the greatest teaching. And I don't think only of yoga, of any spiritual teaching in general, the teaching of the art of non-reaction. And that's when we take these powerful tools that we have into the yoga, can be one of them, but it helps you to stay more mindful. Imagine if you take a breath before you say anything.
Yeah.
Noticing when you say anything, there is no breath and sometimes relax, take a deep breath. Even we already do this, right? You don't have to even be in the yoga world. It's something that it's instinctively that the power of the breath, and that I thought also the breath work, it can actually really shift your entire nervous system because it allows you to stay more relaxed. So I think yoga has become more and more popular because it's an experience, regardless of you believe it or not. The same with breath work is a technique. You don't need to believe in anything. I'll teach you, we'll show you, you feel it, and then you're like, holy moly, this thing works.
and amazingly, I mean, just even after a few days, I can feel that works, like that feeling of presence and more clarity and calm. Just even after it. So people can do it just, obviously just for a day or two. So we're back again next year, Ani?
Yes.
You heard it here first on the World Away.
That's right. No, it is amazing. And, I think we don't realize that, we think, oh, it's a weekend and then I go back to my life and everything is the same. But it cannot be the same because you have shifted a lot during the weekend because you're fully immersed. I mean, the whole day you go through meditation and breath work and cultural experiences that also have so much wisdom. And it shifts a lot within, sound healing and all this. So it all works together to create it's really shuffling everything in your system. And then, you finish the weekend and you feel oh, wow, what happened? But it stays with you, and it's going to keep, unfolding things, for weeks, for months, maybe. And the idea is also for everyone to be able to take something home. As Elka mentions, it's just techniques, but there's a lot of different things, all these rituals of self-love and applying this, self-massage and, these little rituals you can do with flowers and plants, how you breathe, how you express yourself, how your voice has the power to really change something within you as well. So all of that, if you apply it to your daily life, and we're not saying, go and, stay in a cave for a whole day and do nothing and meditate. That's not the thing. We live in a modern world and we have to deal with everything that is in our modern world. But you can retreat for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can go to bed and lay in bed. You're okay, I'm going to breathe now. Inhale, on count of 3 and exhale on the count of 6 to really relax the nervous system. So it's a lot of different tools and these amazing technologies that we have. And our parents or grandparents, they didn't have these tools. They didn't know. And so we do have the tools now. And so we are able to apply it in our daily lives. And then it is, do we want to do it or not? Where do we want to put our attention and our focus and our energy? And as we say, again, where your attention goes, your energy goes. So if you're always in the mind and looking at, your phone or listening to the news and things like that, you're not present, and you just work as automatic pilot. So it is coming back to this state of like being conscious, being intentional with everything we do. And it doesn't require us to be like a saint or a yogi or anything like that. It's just us as humans. We're here to experience this life with all its gifts and its challenges, but always doing it in a way that is like, you know, finding the gifts in everything, even in very difficult times. Because I mean, to be honest, like this festival is a miracle because I mean, everything was so challenging to put it together. Everything, like there were so many different things. And at one point it was like, okay, maybe we're not meant to do it. But something happens like, no, we need light, we need joy, we need we need to bring people together because we need to be able to surrender together, to breathe together, to cry, laugh, sing, dance together. And spaces like that are powerful in that way because we all support each other. And, like teachers like, Elka, I mean, I'm so grateful and so blessed that she's been with us. We've been very intentional with the teachers and guides we have invited at the festival too, because they all embody what they teach. It's very easy today to walk around and say, I'll do this and that. But are you actually embodying it? Is it what you are actually about? And that was important to us. We really wanted something very genuine, very authentic. And that is what we actually created, thanks to all the guides that we have invited. And we said, okay, let's create this together. And all of the offerings we had is not something you find in a yoga studio or on an online training. Everything was crafted and curated for the festival to make it really special. And sometimes we think, oh, it's going to be the first one. Ooh, it's going to be so messy. Let's wait for the next one. But to me, first ones are always so beautiful because it's the first vision, the first seed you plant. And it's so precious. And then it can only grow in such a beautiful way, and it doesn't have to be perfect. One of my teachers like, oh, if you're perfect, you're dead. But it is about being alive, being vibrant. And I think that's what we could find throughout this weekend is that aliveness in the culture, in the wisdom, and in every guide that help us create that space.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I certainly felt that. Absolutely. So thank you so much for your time. And it's been so great chatting with you both. And I hope to see you again next year.
Yes.
I love that, Kirsty. I love that you can hear the passion that comes through. And I hadn't really thought about yoga in that way and how there's so much power in transforming the way that you think and feel. So while you were in Tahiti, was there anything else that you did that you think is an absolute must do?
Okay, so this one you cannot miss if you go to Tahiti. Put this one on your to-do list for sure. So there's a 40-kilometer four-wheel drive tour that you do with, I did it with Tamana Tahiti Tours, and it takes you right through the center of Tahiti. So you literally go from Papua Nui in the north to Matai in the south. And you go from the very north to the very south, straight down the middle of the island. This is a remarkable experience, but be warned. I mean, I was white-knuckled gripping that four-wheel drive. So we're standing on the back, right, holding the bars, and we're standing up. You could take your shoes off and you can just stand on the seats and you're holding onto those metal bars. And these four-wheel drives go so close to the cliff edge, and they cliffs just cleave down into a valley, and you can't even see the bottom of the valley. It's that extreme. And it is just sort of equally frightening and exhilarating and beautiful and just such a remarkable experience. It is just, the reward is that, you're surrounded by these trees and plants that are so green, they're almost luminous. And in this valley because he talks a lot, the guides, about the flora, and in this valley is this plant called ape. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, APE, and it's basically the elephant ear. And these plants are so big that you could actually just wrap yourself in them. That's how big they are. They're like huge leaves. And you learn about all sorts of things about the importance of them and how all these plants are used in ceremonies. And we stopped at a giant chestnut tree, and he jumped out and got this big rock and started hitting the base of the tree with this giant rock. And then the sound just vibrates. This amazing sound just vibrates throughout the whole forest. And that was how he was saying the traditional mountain clan used to communicate. It's just such an incredible spiritual experience. And then you also stop in it like a private little lagoon. So you're in the middle of nowhere, and you just pull up to this crystal clear, beautiful lagoon and spring, and people were clambering up the cliff face and jumping in. It was just spectacular. And when we came out onto the west side, because you go, you come through, and then they came out, they call it, you come through the west and you go through this tunnel, and we came out, and there was just this like clouds, like rising like steam off the top of the mountain. It felt like you were in the clouds. It was just incredible. And then going back down again, because then you're sort of venturing down to come back out to the other side, and then you drive all the way around the west side of the island back up to Papua. It is just spectacular, just the most beautiful scenery. But yes, if you have vertigo, probably not one for you. And they say that all ages can do it, but I would say if you've got a bad back or something, it's probably not a great idea, because you sort of it's very bumpy. It's just you're on. A lot of it is not concreted, or most of it isn't actually. And then the other little thing I would suggest to do is go to Vaima Springs. So this is not very big, and it's quite unassuming and it's all over socials. It's VAIMA, this spring, because it's very well known for its healing properties and really pretty. You can see it on my socials. But it's actually surprising, because it's actually off a really busy road. So you're pulling off this road into the car park, and then all of a sudden there's just the spring, and there's lots of locals go there. And we bumped into one local woman there, and she said she came there every day because the waters are so healing and she loves it. And there's a man who's there they were saying, the people that, the locals that were with us, that basically there was a guy there who is there every day, and he feeds the eels. So there are eels in there. They don't bite, they're freshwater eels. And we said to one of them, do you eat the eels? And they're like, oh my God, eels are sacred in Tahiti. You don't eat eels. And we were like, oh, in New Zealand you eat eels. But anyway, there you go. So, and I stayed at the Hilton, which is a stunning property in Papua. If you're going to go and stay somewhere, gorgeous property. It's got, you had breakfast in the overwater restaurant, which looks over the property's reef. So there's a reef with all this beautiful marine life, and really close to, say, the markets and and the shops, and so great spot.
Kirsty, thanks so much for taking us on this magical journey to Tahiti. I am going to invigorate my much ignored yoga practice, and if you are similarly inspired, jump on to see Kirsty's fabulous socials from there, and at Kirsty Writes on Instagram, and on the show notes on the website or your podcast app for all the details. The 2026 Yoga Festival will be held in Tahiti from the 16th to the 18th of October, and you can find out more at tahitiyogafest.com. Next up, I'm chatting to Australian musician and composer David Bridie, a founding member of Not Drowning Waving, about his 4 decades-long connection with Papua New Guinea. He is initiated into the Tonai tribe, and he tells us what to do if you are visiting the little-known tropical destination. David, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you on The World Awaits.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Now, I have to start off right at the top with your connections with PNG. When most Australian kids were going to London or the US in the 80s for their year abroad, you went to Papua New Guinea, and I'm wondering what made you choose our closest neighbour, but also in the other sense, our most remote?
I think, because it was our closest neighbour, but so different from my life in the suburbs of Melbourne. I played a band, Not Drowning Waving. Mark Worth was a filmmaker whose father was in the Navy in Manus Island, the naval base up there. So Mark spent the first 15 years of his there in Papua New Guinea. He would regale me with tales about adventures in Papua New Guinea, and that enthralled me. I thought, that sounds like such a fantastic place. I even remember as a kid having a Jacaranda Atlas, and at the back it had this section of flora and fauna from Papua New Guinea, and it just grabbed my attention as being, wow, this would be an amazing place to go. I was aware of the connection that Australia had, both with the war and our colonial history and with the Kiaps. So I thought, well, let's over there. England and America can wait until later.
And how old were you when you first started travelling there? And when you got off that plane, what was your first impressions of PNG?
It was 24 when I first went to PNG, and we arrived in Port Moresby and had this wild first night drinking duty-free gin on Ella Beach. And we also were staying right near, there was a rugby league game. Football ground was in Morocco, so we stayed there, and that was all happening. It was a Sunday afternoon, I think. The next morning we flew up to Wewak and went and stayed at this guest house run by this eccentric German man named Ralph Stuttgart, and then we went down to the Sepik River the next morning. So I was 24, this is 1986. And so, my first trip overseas, I was in this village on the Sepik River within a day and a half. It was just fantastic. Lots of mosquitoes. But the river, the Sepik's this mighty, it's like the Nile or the Amazon or the Mississippi. It's this big aqua highway and so many villages along there, and the artwork was astonishing in these big house tambourines. I was there with a few friends, and all of us were just gawking at everything because everything was new. Every smell, every sound, every visual, both the natural world and the people and the dwellings. I was in a constant state of amazement.
And it's also really remote. So much of it is really inaccessible now, but in the 80s as well, especially places like the Sepik River, are almost inaccessible even today. How did people receive you when you first started traveling in PNG?
Oh, they were like Papua New Guinean people, Melanesian people in general are really hospitable. And we were just young kids, so people were really nice. Sometimes people think it's weird. We were sleeping in these old nuns' rooms on wooden slats or on a concrete floor. It was pretty Spartan, and we were making it up as we went along. But I think what we found is if you stayed in a place for a little bit longer and you got to know people, the hospitality really came out. People were quite going anywhere for one night. It's kind of, one day or something, everything's new and you're not sure what's going on and they don't know what to make of you. We were young. And of course, later on, after many, many trips, sometimes, when you had more money, you can stay. There's some wonderful hotel accommodation and resorts, and which was kind of an easier way of doing it. But I that first trip, we went to the Sepik, caught a boat from Wewak to Madang, woke up in the morning, and Manam Island was it was a volcano, so that was smoking, and then we were in Madang for a while, then went up to Manus and stayed at Ponham Island there, heard Garamot drumming and dancing, then went to Kavieng and caught a truck on the back of a copper truck down the Bulaminsky Highway to Namat. I went over to Rabaul. That's where I met George Telek, the singer, at Pacific Gold Studios. Hung out with him for a few days and at the studio for a bit. And that cemented the reason why I've kept going back to this day, 40 years later. But even then, I'd fallen in love with the place. Some bits were so gobsmackingly beautiful, and other bits were hard. It was a very different world, but I found it really opened my awareness about the world and thinking about things differently. I find it inspiring. So, yeah.
It's, a 40-year relationship with the country, and so in depth. I mean, since that time, you've created incredible musical connections with George Telek, who you just played with in Melbourne recently for the 50th anniversary, because also you were traveling in PNG, it was only 10 years or so after it had become a country that was independent from Australia.
Yeah,
that time.
Really early. We were there. It was quite interesting. I've been doing some music for a couple of the documentaries that were about the 50th, the amazing celebration that was the 50th year. We were there just 10 years after those black and white shots of Michael Samari and Gough Whitlam and those amazing scenes around that time. He's changed a lot since that first time we were there. It's been an incredible trajectory for such a young country.
Well, I wanted to ask you, how many times have you returned in that last 40 years? And what is it that keeps drawing you back? Is it the food? Is it the scenery? Clearly, music is integral to it. So do you go back every year?
Yeah, I've gone back pretty much. I reckon I've been there 45 times or something since that first time. So once or twice a year. And sometimes I'm going because I've got some really interesting work stuff, whether, be recording with George, some film soundtrack work, producing things we're doing with the One Talk Music Foundation. Sometimes I go up because I've got friends there, friends that have become almost like family, especially in Rabaul, but also in Bougainville and Manus, and some of the people I met when I was there the first time. Some of them may have passed on, but their kids I'm really close with because you just that constant relationship with. So I feel really blessed to, and that's part of the attraction to go back. But I think Papua New Guinea and also the Solomons and Vanuatu have this natural beauty about them. Village life grassroots life in Papua New Guinea I find quite amazing. It's resilient. People are eating food from the same gardens that their ancestors going back however many thousand years still eat from. So if you're into diving or bushwalking or butterflies, or if you're a volcanologist, or if you're into music, or if you're into carvings, if you're into storytelling, if you're into history, Papua New Guinea, these parts of the world have such fascination and such magnetism about them. It's not for everyone, but I always try to encourage young Australian people to go there, whether on a holiday or to do some work, volunteer, or if you're a lawyer, if you're a person who works in health, if you work in sports, whatever. Australia and Papua New Guinea have this amazing link, and there might be a couple who regret it, but out of 198 would go, wow.
Wouldn't it be great to revisit those emotions as a young person and think, what am I doing here? How did I end up here? And hopefully, how did I get so lucky? That first place that you travel, what a great experience that would be. In hindsight would be lovely. So you've said that PNG has changed a lot. How has it changed?
When I first went there, some parts of the highlands had only, maybe 30 years that they've been exposed to the outside world. So they've gone through the whole of the Industrial Revolution in that. I remember meeting two Highlanders who were selling some beads and some carvings outside a hotel where I was staying. I got talking with them, and when they were born, there was this old man, and when he lived the first 25 years of his life before first contact. That was an astonishing conversation. It just blew my mind. This man and his wife, what they had seen and what they had lived through was astonishing. They laughed about it because that was their thing. So the Highlands was and still is this fascinating part of the world that has only had that first quite a recent contact, which is less, in the towns. The towns are all established, Hagen, Goroka and Warburg. Phones have had a big difference there. Papua New Guinea's become more confident all the time. In phones, phones have got a good thing. The communication works really well with the one-talk system. Sometimes it means that some languages are diluting because of the phone, the influence of, as we all know, the internet exposing some of the best and the worst things in the world. And it does tend to homogenize things. One thing I find fascinating about Papua New Guinea is the uniqueness, the number of languages, the number of different cultural groups. And Moresby is like this big modern city with all this wealth and the Stanley Hotel and the highways. Everything was quite this metropolis. But the gap between rich and poor is quite strong. There's a dissonance there. So that's not the good side of it. But the good side is look at the confidence in the area that I'm au fait with. The music scene is creating its own sound. It's getting really confident. Access to equipment and gear is a lot better now. And I think that confidence in sound, confidence is something that applies to so many aspects of Papua New Guinean life. The intelligence and the ability of the best doctors, lawyers and writers in Papua New Guinea has grown much larger than what it was at first because the opportunity wasn't there, where I think the opportunity is more there. Yeah. I mean, it's a long conversation, Belinda, about the changes in that 50 years. And it's a fascinating conversation to have with Papua New Guineans themselves. I mean, they're always fascinating to talk about, talking to an older person about what changes they've seen in their lifetime.
Absolutely. And then when you travel around, do you find that it's more accessible? I mean, clearly, it's had its own airline for those 50 years, always flying line of sight, and that's a whole different story. But just the access, would have different parts of PNG opened up, or have they actually closed down since you've been traveling?
I do know that as of 2 months ago, the road from the Highlands down to Moresby connected through, and that was always something that was fascinating, that the capital was separated from the Highlands and the North Coast.
The long driving road trips are out then.
Well, it was. I mean, because of the Owen Stanley Ranges being so, the mountains come out of nowhere. That's why the Kokoda Trail is so phenomenal, because it's like going up and then down, and it's quite rugged. And that spine goes all through the centre of Papua New Guinea and over into West Papua as well. Transport, I think, is, it's not necessarily that. There are roads. I know the road from Rabaul to Kimby is there that used to never be. Even still, the road and the amount of rain, and because it's a young country geologically, all the earth tremors kind of wreck the road, so it's sometimes still easier to go by boat.
Is that how you travel around? Do you fly between your destinations, or do you find yourself doing boat trips?
On boat trips for smaller things. If you're in Lorengau and Madison going out to Beepy on the west coast, the only way to do it is by boat. And that's fantastic. I love being on boats. I love being on the back of a coconut truck or on the back of a ute. You can sit in the back of a ute on a country road around Rabaul. In Australia, to be against the law, but that's the wind in you. You got to be pale skin. You got to be careful. You don't get sunburned. Because with the volcanic eruptions, you end up getting covered in dust and everything. But it's great sitting on the back of a ute with 8 people and everyone's talking. It's a nice community thing. The wind in your hair and you're seeing all the natural beauty in villages because of the climate. Obviously, everyone's out. It's an outdoor life, but villages on the roads or on the Sepik River and stuff. There are people everywhere. There's villages everywhere, and you're just watching life go by as people are outside a lot. Yeah, I mean, Air Guinea's never had an accident, and it flies in some of the most difficult terrain. If you ever get a chance to go on some of the smaller aeroplanes that go to more remote destinations, they're fantastic air trips as well.
I do love a small aircraft. I think there's something so exciting about them. PNG, it's never really taken off as a destination for Australians, but every country's got certain things that appeal to certain people. I mean, what sort of traveller would PNG appeal to most?
Well, if you're into fishing, you'd go. You'd go because it's got the best of, world's best practice for those two things. And there are a number of, what's the place about? Is it Biologues in West New Britain's great for fishing, and the Kimber Dive Resort there in West New Britain's fantastic. Bird watchers would love it, yeah. So that, what's the place up in Enga? I think it's called Cornwall Lodge, where you get to see Bird's Paradise. And there's a little place I've been off New Island, just a little island called the Listenung Resort. So people go there for surfing or for diving. I mean, I'm not a diver, but I love snorkeling, and snorkeling is my place. So actually, my partner and I just came back from the Solomon Islands, where we went snorkeling, and it did. But yes, in PNG, there's lots of places like that. So there's that kind of market for it.
And on events as well, because a lot of those tours that do go are built around PNG's festival scene. So you've got that whole sing across the highlands, which I understand was a construct. It was a way to create relationships between tribes that otherwise might not be on the best of terms, so they could showcase their music, their costumes, their customs. Have you, as somebody who's been embedded in the PNG music scene, have you spent much time going to festivals or seeing things?
I've been to their festival, which I think happens every year in August. I thoroughly recommend that. The one in Hagen and Goroka, the big Highlands festivals. They're quite big. Enga's a bit smaller, but amazing. Similar kind of thing, just a whole lot of groups coming, and there's a little bit of competition in trying to outdo each other. Face paint and the beads and the decoration and these haunting songs is quite something. In Rabaul, they have the Mask Festival, which the Tolo Wawagira, which is that's got Una activities, ancestral activities like dance and music, but it also has bands playing at night. It goes until 11 o'clock at night. I played there once with Telek, and that's a really family-friendly, great festival that happens there. That's in July, I think. With all these festivals, it's worth checking out because they sometimes shift from year to year. The Hiri Mawali Festival in Moresby. There's been apparently a good, one of my favourite musicians in Papua New Guinea, Richard Mulga, has been involved in a festival in Milne Bay, and it was his place. That was a couple of months ago. So that's just started this year. The Bougainville Chocolate Festival in October is fantastic. That's got music and a lot of those cow bands. I think there's a crocodile arts festival that happens all the time. These festivals for each province or each major place, they're becoming a bigger thing, and everyone's dreaming of wanting them to be a place to bring in people, to give opportunity for their artists. They all try to set it up as much as they can to be friendly to outsiders. They're worth heading to for sure.
I had recently spoken to a new shark calling festival, which was happening in New Britain, which just sounded incredible. It's got ancestor connections. It's the capturing sharks. They fast beforehand and the shark comes to the person and basically sacrifices itself to the village. I just thought this is so undocumented when you look for it. So many things have got thousands of years of history, but then they're also written about for the past thousands of years. And there's so little documentation outside it. And I think you've got a passion about that as well, haven't you? About documenting music, rhythms, instruments from PNG.
Yeah, no, the sharkfish. I think New Ireland is where it is on the west coast there. Yes.
Sorry, you're right, New Ireland.
They've got these fire dances. When people ask me as a musician, because you get asked this all the time in interviews, what's the best rock concert you've ever seen? And I always say Binding's fire dance, because those rhythms were as guttural and loud, and the visuals, and went from 6 o'clock until 6 in the morning, and the light show of the fire and these people. The Binding's masks are incredible. They're running through this fire. It was just like, and it's one of those things you just keep your ear and eye out for. And this practice is so vital and unique. And maybe this conversation gets back to how things are changing. Some of the songs being sung by the old people, the younger ones are not necessarily learning them. So there's a big push to try to record these songs, because these people are getting older, and even in the space of 40 years, the language has changed quickly. I'm sure some things that were practiced, in 1880 or 1890 at first contact times, many of those songs will have been lost. Some of those instruments will have been lost. Papua New Guinea has culturally those songs like diamonds, those songs, those masks and those dances. There's still a lot there, but as the world modernizes, they're the things that are in danger of being lost. So I'm quite passionate, as are a lot of Papua New Guinean sound engineers and artists, to record these songs, archive them, and make sure all the information about them is documented, even to record them and perform them and stuff, because that keeps them alive.
Are tourists then helping or hindering this process when we come into an almost pristine environment? Are we protecting it, or are we bringing in our own influences to their detriment?
Oh, I don't think tourism is a level in PNG, and it probably won't ever be at that level where that's in danger of wiping things out like it is in some other countries where there's this massive influx.
Not even like that reggae scene that's happening down in Port Moresby at the moment, which is very different to what it's been traditionally.
Yeah, the reggae and hip hop stuff that's happening there, it's at the black culture, so I kind of get why that's attractive to Papua New Guinean musicians, and some of the better exponents of it are introducing some of their traditional elements into this music, into the reggae or the hip hop, but talk about things that are endangering traditional practices. A lot of other stuff brought in by Australians and British and German people back in the 1870s that far exceed the kind of musical corruption that might have occurred. There are still some musical practices that exist in PNG, quite a lot, that have these links back hundreds, thousands of years. Many parts of Papua New Guinea have what the rest of the world's lost and is yearning for. That connection to its environment, the knowledge and the artistic practice that their ancestors had, is something that the West has lost. Hopefully, there are some good people in Papua New Guinea who are fighting to retain these things, but there's also, the appeal of the dollar and unscrupulous practice by some people is but that's a fight that goes on everywhere. But I look at I hope they do win that fight, because PNG still has things that I know, sometimes you're up there and you're sitting on an island and you're going, this is the best that the world has to offer. And that's what PNG still has many of those places, in the highlands, on the coral reefs, on the islands.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to wrap up a gorgeous country. Look, the question I have to ask you, being super travel-y here, the question that everybody asks about PNG is it safe to travel there?
Precaution is needed in PNG because of the poverty. It's not a place where you want to be walking around with your wallet hanging out of your back pocket, or you're being ostentatious with your gold chains. When people are poor, they're desperate. I've been to Papua New Guinea a lot, and my exposure to crime has been very minuscule, but I'm male and I'm 6 foot tall. I know a lot of women who work up in Papua New Guinea now, and they love it. Locals will look after them. I think one of the reasons why I haven't seen as much crime is because I'm hanging with my Papua New Guinean friends. people everywhere when they're drunk, dangerous. That's the same as being in King Street in Melbourne. I wouldn't go there at 2:00 in the morning because it's dangerous. I don't trust. To go to a country that has that grassroots and that life in the raw and all the wonderful things that PNG has, the flip side of that, there is that element of risk. But I feel sad when I hear of people who go to and they just stay in their hotels the time, or people who are working there and live in gated communities because they're missing out on the best parts. One of the changes now is that you find on Sunday afternoons, families are out everywhere. They go to church in the morning and they're having a picnic somewhere, or they're down the beach swimming. This community family vibe is quite strong. There are a lot more music concerts in Port Moresby than there used to be. And people turn up and they're great, Again, don't have your wallet hanging out of your pocket, or don't leave your phone on the table. It's saying, it's the dignity of risk and the slight risk of going to PNG is bad. How so many people I know go to PNG and everybody's warning them before they go, but careful this, careful that.
The final question, which I'll knock down before I get diverted elsewhere, is the final question we ask all our guests is, what is your most bizarre travel experience? And it doesn't have to be PNG. It can be anywhere in the world.
Oh, no, look, we'll stick to PNG because, the cliche is the land of the unexpected, and it's well earned. I went to this funeral once. It was on an island in the Tropics Islands called Tawema, and it was a full moon. And one thing I found in Papua New Guinea, when you're in the village, when you're in a place that doesn't have electricity, when there is a full moon, it's a very different day because people are up all night. They take advantage of it. You've got this light. And so the paramount chief had died. And so we were there for this big ceremony for his passing. But it was the happiest funeral I've ever been to in my life. There was music, there was dancing, there was laughing, chickens going off. People had been swimming at 3:00 in the morning. And it was just wild. It was like it was a celebration of the old man's life. And it was all like he'd passed on all the knowledge to those behind him. They were just really celebrating it. And it was just, and people in the Trobriand Islands are quite small, and their houses that they sleep in are really small. I think about 3:00 in the morning, my partner and I, they said, "Oh, look, do you want to go to bed?" So I went and lied down, and my feet are like sticking outside of the house by about 1.5 foot. People are drinking kind of this yawa, this sort of banana-infused kind of liquor that you had to go kind of careful on, eating food out of banana leaves, and I got very, very little sleep that night, but it was just quite amazing. It was quite amazing. But when I saw that question, there's so many ways. I was with a friend who started arguing with these people who were trying to grease him for a road tax in the Highlands, and he lost his cool with them. And I thought, this is not going to end well for any of us. And we ended up sitting on the side of the road having a cup of tea with them, and then, people giving each other hugs and stuff. It was like, 20 minutes before I thought, what we'd gone for here. But I love that Tawema story because I have pictures in my head of, moonlight through, palm trees and through the koolal trees and the string band music. And there was this girl string bands, halfway through the song, this girl would come in with these impossibly high harmonies. Like she's just belting out, and they are higher than I've ever heard anyone sing. It was something really joyous about it. So that'll be my bizarre, my wild experience in PNG.
Trobriand Islands. So you've wrapped it up beautifully on bizarre experiences. David, thank you so much for joining us on The World Awaits. It's been an absolute joy to disappear for a brief moment to PNG with you.
Thanks, Belinda. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
For more information about David's work, see his website, davidbridie.com. And stay tuned for our next episode as we're talking to 3 people who've decided to pack up their corporate lives to become digital nomads. And if you're enjoying our podcast, please leave us a rating and a review. On Apple Podcasts, click on our profile, scroll down to the bottom to leave a star rating. And if you're on Spotify, go to our main page and click the 3 dots underneath our photo. or drop us a line at hello@theworldawaits.au. We love hearing from our listeners. Thanks so much for joining us on the World Awaits Summer Series. See you next time. That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.